In the winter of 1866, workers clearing snow in the Sierra Nevada began finding something they were not expecting. Men, still upright, frozen in place, shovels in their hands, caught mid-motion, as if the storm had interrupted them and never released them. The records that mention this are brief, almost detached. No names, no personal details, no accounts from the men themselves, only the fact that they were found and that they had been working when they died. And that detail matters, because for a project that employed thousands of people, very few of them left anything behind. No letters, no diaries, no first-person records in their own words. Stanford University has spent decades searching for one thing: a single written document from a railroad worker. One sentence, one page. Any direct account of what it was like to be there. They describe it as their holy grail. After more than 40 years of research, they have not found it. 12,000 workers, and not one surviving document written in their own hand. That is not a gap in storytelling. That is a gap in the record itself. And it raises a different kind of question. Not about what they built, but about what was preserved. Because what they built is still here. The rail lines still run. The tunnels still hold. The routes they carved through mountains and desert are still in use today. The system remains. The people do not. And the scale of what they accomplished is difficult to process. The Central Pacific Railroad had to cross the Sierra Nevada. Not around it, through it, solid granite, vertical cliffs, extreme weather. They blasted tunnels by hand, drilling holes into rock, packing them with black powder, and later nitroglycerin, lighting fuses and climbing back to safety before the explosion. Progress was slow, measured in inches per day. At the summit, over 1,600 feet of tunnel was carved through granite, not by machines, by people, working with tools that required direct physical force. And during the winter of 1866 to 1867, the conditions changed. 44 separate storms hit the mountains. Snowfall reached over 40 feet in some areas. Entire camps disappeared. Avalanches swept workers off the slopes without warning. Visibility dropped. Temperatures collapsed. Work continued because the system required it. Deadlines did not move. The project did not pause. And when spring arrived, some of the workers were still there, preserved by the cold, standing where they had been working. No record of their names, no record of where they came from, only the position they were found in and the tools they were holding. Most of the workforce was Chinese, between 10 and 15,000 workers at any given time. By 1867, they made up roughly 90% of the labor force. They were paid around $30 to $35 per month, less than white workers, often without the same food or shelter. They worked longer shifts, in harsher conditions, and when they organized a strike in 1867, demanding equal pay and better treatment, the company responded by cutting off food supplies to their camps. No food, no deliveries, no support. The strike ended. Work resumed. The railroad continued. And the system moved forward. But the record did not expand with it. Because while we know the numbers, we do not know the individuals. There is no complete employee list, no full roster, no centralized archive of who worked on which section of track. The California State Railroad Museum states this directly. The records do not exist in complete form. The Minnesota Historical Society reports the same pattern. Files are partial, fragmented, missing. Before 1870, Chinese workers barely appear in federal census data. There was no standardized way to record them. After 1882, with the Chinese Exclusion Act, documentation became even more unstable. Families avoided records. Some documents were destroyed. Others were never created. And then the companies changed. Railroads merged, expanded, absorbed smaller lines. Records were consolidated. And when records are consolidated, they are simplified, reduced, Details are removed. Individual names are the first to disappear. What remains are summaries, totals, workforce numbers, miles of track, cost per mile, output per day. The system preserves what it measures, and what it measured was production, not people. And that is where the pattern becomes visible, because we know exactly how much material was moved. We know how many rails were laid in a single day. On April 28, 1869, workers laid 10 miles of track in one shift. 10 miles, in less than 12 hours. More than 4 million pounds of material, moved, placed, secured, in a single day. We know how many spikes were driven, how many ties were positioned, how many bolts were fastened. We can calculate the total force required, the total labor involved, but we cannot name most of the people who did it. And that imbalance is not random, it is structural, because industrial systems are designed to scale. And when systems scale, they stop tracking individuals. They track output, efficiency, speed, consistency, and once that happens, the people inside the system become interchangeable, replaceable. Their identities are no longer necessary for the system to function, as long as the work continues, as long as the structure expands, as long as the result is achieved. And it was. By 1869, the railroad was complete, a continent connected, an engineering system that still functions today. The tunnels remain, the routes remain, the infrastructure still carries weight, but the human record is incomplete. And that incompleteness follows a pattern. The more essential the labor, the less visible the individual. The larger the system, the smaller the person inside it. And over time, that pattern becomes invisible. You inherit the result without seeing the process. You use the infrastructure without knowing who built it. You move through systems assembled by people who no longer appear in the story, not because they weren't there, but because the system did not require them to be remembered. The rails still hold, the tunnels still stand, the engineering still functions after more than a century. But the names are gone, and when names disappear, something else disappears with them. The connection between effort and outcome, between labor and structure, between people and the systems they built. And once that connection is gone, the system becomes something else. Not something built, but something that simply exists. And that is the shift. Because the question is not whether the railroads were built, they were. The question is how thousands of people can build something that lasts for generations and leave almost no trace of themselves behind, and whether that absence is an accident or a feature of the kind of system that required them in the first place. Because the system remembers the result, it forgets the people, and once something is forgotten at that scale, it does not feel like it was removed. It feels like it was never there at all.